30 minutes, okay. Shawpuff's theme.
宮殿内で繰り広げられた激しい攻防をよそに。
But in the last episode, they mentioned
そんな彼らの未来の姿が動き出そうとしていた。
beautiful stuff, man. Look at this. Interesting that it's Shawpuff's theme accompanying this scene of Palm. Wow. Yeah, it's infused into her head. I mean, it's a part of her now, of her build-up. Killua. So it could be a mix of Killua and Ikalgo, maybe coming across her. Oh yeah, these are really familiar halls. Hell, he might come across her first. Oh, how cool. Oh, I've seen that before. You know, the dark aura. So he recognizes it. Ah, right, the reflection. Cool. Oh, there is. There she is. It's an interesting pairing, isn't it? Killua and Palm, this Palm. It's a great design, it really is. This hybrid. Ah.
面影を残しながらも以前のパームではないことが明白なその姿がキルアの神経を激しく波立たせた。
捕まったんだ。護衛軍に。
Wow, yeah. I'm excited to learn about that aspect of it. Look at it, immediately thinks of Gon.
あいつの心に他の何かが入る隙間なんてない。もしもパームの心までが完全に変えられていたらゴンは壊れるかもしれない。
Listen, that might end up happening anyways, right?
俺がここで確かめるしかない。賞賛はある。パームは近づいてきた。パームかも。俺が視線を感じた以上、俺より前にパームも俺に気づいていたはず。前に言っていた知識。
Right there it is, the aura.
私の能力を使えば容易なことよ。占いみたいな探索能力と俺は当たりをつけたが、おそらく千里眼に近い。パームが今いた場所からは俺を直接見ることはできなかった。別の方法で俺を見たとしか考えられないからだ。そしてパームがもし敵ならば遠ざかったはず。千里眼は離れてこそ有効な技だし、敵ならもう俺への記憶はないはずだから、近づいたってことはパームは俺を、俺たちを覚えてる。
Let's see that. Oh.
記憶がある。
ゴンはこんな姿になった私をもうゴンは嫌いになるかしら。
ゴンは見てくれで人を判
Look at
断
this
しないよ。
immediate shift in his attitude.
まず嫌われてるって前提はないわけね。
相変わらず憎たらしい
Ooh,
口利くわ
okay.
ね。
She remembers everything.
ま、いいわ。ゴンはどこ？
I like how she...
ゴンはピトーについている。あいつは俺が見えてゴンが見えないのはなんでだ。
Huh.
俺を見つけたのはたまたまか。
は？何言ってんの？あんたの方がそこ曲がってきたんでしょ。
違うね。 俺はお前の視線
Yeah,
に
he
気づい
did.
た。
He did.
こっちに来たのはそのせいだ。お前が先に気づいたはずだ。なぜ嘘をつく？
Oh.
めんどくさいガキ。
俺が気づいたパームの視線は実際に俺を見ていた時のも
Physically saw you?
の。ならばパームは俺を見つけてすぐに俺から遠ざかった。そして追ってくる俺を千里眼で見て
Ah.
キビスを返し近づいて
So she got a look at him. Or she needed to get a look at him. Perhaps. Yeah, I keep noticing that blood there.
敵だろお前。
Ooh. Ooh. Something happened there. Whoa. It's like armor. Wow.
私は間違っていた。力の使い方を持て余すほどの劇場なら素直に身を任せればよかったんだわ。
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Dark Demon Goddess. Yes, you are.
こいつやばい。
溜め込むくらいなら
Ah,
吐き出す。
wow. It's a great look. Ooh. Oh, that hurt. Oh, the form.
どうすんの？喋ってから死ぬ？
It's a defensive approach. He's not trying to retaliate or possibly hurt her. I love the little animation
そ
there.
れとも死ぬ？
毛髪で自身を武装するパームのブラックウィドウは感情によってその様相を変えるが、その役割はもっぱら防御にあり、
A great stance there.
真に恐るべきは守りを強健な神の鎧に委ねることでこそ可能な全身全霊を込めたオーダである。
A significant amount of coal. Oh, yeah. Right, she's an enhancer as well. Wow.
パームはもともと強化系。能力が壺にはまるとこんなにも変わるのか。完璧にガードしても
Yeah.
ダメージが
How much longer can you take it, Killua?
長期戦になったら
Hmm.
完全に不利だ。それでも逃げる
I mean,
わけ
those
にはいかない。
It looked like he fractured his arm there.
ゴンの精神は限界。人を待つことでやっとつながっている状態なんだ。絶対に合わせられない。たとえ元のパームの心が残っていても今はマイナス。
We've got to switch it up, man. I'm not sure how much more of this he can actually take.
なんでゴンを探してるんだ。
Like a cat.
理由次第じゃ居場所を教えてやってもいいぜ。ごめん。
Ah.
俺もテンパってて敵とか言っちゃったけど外見が変わろうがお前はパームなんだろ。
Ooh, again. Something happened there,
苦
right?
しんでる。
It got through.
尊敬する人を無残に変えられてその人は今
Oh,
心すら奪われてるんだ。
Killua knows. He's
それを
gone.
した張本人とゴンは向かい合ってる。そこへお前までがその姿でいきなり現れたらゴンはも
Oh.
うまともでいられなくなる。それが条件だ。
Oh, beautiful.
大丈夫って言って
So that's one less thing for him to think about.
ゴンを安心させてやってよ。
時
Okay.
間稼ぎ、
Oh,
合わせるつもりは毛頭ない。そのはずだった。
that was the idea. Okay.
あいつを
This is real. This is.
少しでも楽にしてやってくれ。それを
Oh,
もうパームにし
not
かでき
me.
ないんだ。
Not me anymore, eh?
他の誰にも
This is real. This is real. This is that release I spoke of.
できないんだよ。
Yeah, let it out, man. Let it all out, like Palm said earlier.
キルアがずっと隠していた席が
Yeah.
切れた。
Sooner or later, that release was going to happen. Beautiful acting. You know, it sounds kind of ugly. That makes it authentic, to me at least. Number one. Not even a name. Just number one. No identity.
かつて
Whoa.
パームが宮殿内
Finally.
に潜入し、ノブが仕掛けた大階段横の出口付近に来た時、ピトーの縁が復活した。
Exact same.
全身が粉々になりそうな凶悪なオーラの中、彼女が悟ったのはノブと全く同じ結末。
In her senses, footsteps.
プフがゆっくりと音もなく迫ってくるのを見て、パームは
Ah, right, the blood.
しかしピトーによって阻止された。
So, they healed her.
の中、身震いを止めることが不可能であるのと同様に、
Or she healed
強烈なオーラに
her.
さらされた瞬間、反射的にオーラで身を守ったパームを誰も責められない。
I feel like she took it better than Nov
そ
Sensei
のオ
though.
ーラに興味を示し、食事を
Ah.
取らない王の許しを得て、ピトーとプフは
Ah.
実験兵士の第一号とすることにした。精神力の強い者ほど過去の記憶が残る傾向にある。害をもたらす事例の大部分は記憶と感情が結びついた場合に生じる。そういう結論に達した2匹はピトーのドクター・ブライスでパームの脳の感情と記憶をつなぐ部位を破壊した。記憶を残す者ほど眉からの再生が早いことは G2 やレオルでの実験によって立証済みであった。
But both of those ants existed before FILMBuFF, no?
実験の成功は人類の破滅をも意味する。さあ行けイチゴ、目の前のガキを殴り殺せ。
黙れ。
Ah.
私はパームシベリア。
There you go. Yes, you are. You've got a name, an identity.
イチゴじゃない。
Love that. In a sense, this is actually good for her. Becoming this hybrid.
あんたたち。アリの手先に
Or to anyone else.
死んでもならない。
There you go. Love this.
あんたのおかげ。
Mm,
頭の中に境があって。
right? By design.
と体がバラバラなのに自分じゃどうもできない。起きてからずっとそうだった。
I mean, she just woke up.
あんたが境を外してくれたの。
Right. His emotional outburst. Not outburst, but
自分の無力
release.
なんて思わないで。
Oh. How about that?
私がゴンのため何かできるなら喜んでする。でも忘れないで。ゴンに一番必要なのはあなたなのよ。
Coming from her, this means everything. Oh. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
失敗 それだけのことです急がば回れ。兵士には記憶も感情も不要ってことですね。しかしそれはピトーの能力の足りずです。私一人でも兵士を生産できるということ、むしろ好都合。
Oh.
王国を立てるのに
Heaven's Arena. Look at this. For the king and me. Okay, episode 124, and it's a full-on proper reintroduction, right? For Palm. And listen, not only is it a return, it's a breakthrough. A full-on breakthrough over the span of an episode. And now she's firmly back on the extermination squad. I mean, yeah, you know, it happened rather quickly, like I said, over the span of an episode. And, you know, I'll give my thoughts on that a little bit later on. But, you know, ultimately, I just felt so proud, you know. As you saw, I'm really quite supportive because I've been really hoping for this. And, you know, like I said, ultimately, it turns out that her actually, or becoming this hybrid, right? A foot in each door, essentially, you know, Chimera ant and human, ultimately that ended up being just the right thing for her. And before I do move on, I just want to clarify, I don't actually think that's Heaven's Arena. I just kind of said it. I said Heaven's Arena because it really resembles the structure, right? The monolithic structure that is Heaven's Arena. So, it kind of continues that trend. I'll come to that. Let's kind of focus on the return of Palm, right? And then, of course, Killua. Because, it's, like I said, it's an interesting pairing, right? But ultimately, it's a pairing that makes so much sense, right? They needed each other, right? These two happen to be the exact people that they needed, right? For their own breakthrough moments. For Killua, it's a release that I've been expecting for some time now, because again, realistically, it had to happen at some point. I mean, of course, at first, he's kind of putting on an act, right? According to the narrator, because ultimately he doesn't have any plans of actually letting Palm meet Gon. But then, of course, as he begins to play into it and he kind of, reassesses the situation in his mind, it just happened, right? And, for once, it's Killua letting it all out, right? Because he does the opposite of Palm. He bottles it up, right? As long as possible. And then, of course, the voice acting is phenomenal, right? Killua confessing his immense sadness and despair that there's nothing he can do to help Gon at this moment. It's so damn raw, that sense of helplessness. It really hits. It really hits hard. And ultimately, it ends up happening in front of just the right person, right? In front of Palm. And it helps Palm connect her memories back with her emotions. But now she's in a much more stable place. And, this is the point I was making, that this is actually a good thing. It ended up being a good thing for her. As crazy as it sounds, right? As strange as it sounds. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to, bring up this idea, this notion that her becoming this hybrid, becoming part Chimera ant, it actually, it actually grounded her. But before any of this happened for Palm, you see that it was Palm that was really quite unstable. She's always lashing out, right? Emotionally. She didn't have her emotions in check. But this actually grounded her. It reshaped her, right? She's able to express herself in a more controlled manner now. So yeah, by the end of it, it's really great to see Palm's emotional stability, right? And clarity as a Chimera ant hybrid. And even though earlier, before the breakthrough, the emotions and memories are separated, that distortion is actually integral as well. And you see by the end of it that she is beginning to have self-respect. Hell, not just beginning to have, she does have self-respect. I loved how she handled one of those clones, the FILMBuFF clones, right? You see that self-worth is there, right? Identity, the growth is just tremendous. And it's really quite a fulfilling sight to see this. Right? I am Palm Siberia. And yeah, I firmly believe at this point that Palm's true self, the aspects of her psyche, which represent the fullest version of who she is supposed to be, right? I think that's shining through, right? Her core essence, her authentic nature. And yeah, I was already kind of excited to see how Palm is going to play a role in the final stages of this arc. But yeah, by the end of this episode, I've become even more excited about that prospect. Because again, you have someone here who has a foot in each door. Right? This hybrid that understands both perspectives at this point, right? Perfectly at that, right? The mentality is really quite unique. Now, before all of the emotional release, the cathartic moments, much like the last episode, right? A lot of similarities, actually. You see, once again, a member of the extermination squad is completely on board in terms of taking responsibility and being resolved to go till the end. And in that flashback, they show us that indeed Palm followed through. I mean, she did try her best to kill herself, right? To remove herself from the equation altogether. More on that in a bit. But, the first half of this episode is all about this really interesting and even, engaging and exciting encounter, right? Between Killua and Palm, the new hybrid Palm, who at that point is essentially an opponent, an enemy. And yet again, I get another really fantastic new look for Palm, right? The Black Widow, the Dark Demon Goddess. It really truly felt like a character design out of like a fighting game, right? Just the stance, the technique, the footwork, all of it. And yeah, Killua knew almost immediately, right? Once she transforms that, yeah, she's dangerous. This is before she actually even lands a strike on him, right? He's on alert and he takes a lot of strikes, right? Though again, to be fair, he's not trying to be on the offensive. He's just being defensive at that point. He's not trying to, possibly or accidentally hurt Palm. At least that's my read on it, because he didn't retaliate even once. The whole time he's on the defensive. And listen, he took quite a bit of damage, and it became clear that he cannot continue taking that damage. And he understood that. He did, and he had to kind of shift gears and take a bit of a different approach. And the crazy thing is, her outfit and just her look in general, in that form, the dark demon goddess, it actually kind of resembles Killua's mom, doesn't it? Right? Kind of similar, right? There's some resemblance there in terms of the look itself. So yeah, interesting encounter. So essentially the first half of this episode kind of continues that idea of these two being rivals for Gon's affection. And then of course the second half, and then, building up to the conclusion, it kind of transforms back into, or not back into, essentially for the first time, both of them kind of being on the same page, right? And at this point, it's not as rivals for Gon's affection, but as support system for Gon, right? As equals that care for Gon. And it's beautiful to see, really. It really is. To see these two specifically kind of get on with each other. Much like how in the last episode you have Ikalgo and Welfin, right? Again, a two-hander. By the end of it, they get along, right? On the same page, heart to heart. That's the exact same thing that happened here. Heart to heart, right? You see that, Palm ended up being that much needed emotional support. I mean, it's not the type of support that Killua was even, hoping for or thinking of, you could tell, again, I touched upon it, but, that's just Killua's approach. He locks it away inside, right? He understands the situation and, again, looking at it from his perspective, he's not expecting to, address any of this, right? This is not the right time for it. Again, looking at it from his perspective. But, Palm, being that person for him, I just love that choice so much because, a third-party perspective, one that was a rival, right, up until recently, it just means so much more than anyone else, legitimately anyone else, right? Because she felt and understood just how much Gon needs Killua, and just how much, Killua means to Gon, right? But back then, around the time she's first introduced, she's jealous of it. Once Takashi begins to explore that Palm and Gon angle, right? You see, immediate rivals. She's really quite standoffish about Killua and his presence at that point, right? Being this lingering figure that's getting between them. And, that friction, that tension is clear throughout the post-NGL training arc, right? I look back at that. It's a really fun little mini arc, isn't it? And you see that Killua certainly remembers all of that, right? And he takes that tone with her almost immediately to kind of gauge a response. In my opinion, at least, that's my reading of it. And to see how much of that combative jealousy is still present, within this Palm that stands in front of him, even if she is a hybrid. But by the conclusion of this episode, as the breakthrough does happen for Palm, and then again, that facilitates the breakthrough for Killua as well. You see that Palm is now able to just kind of admit, right, without the jealousy, that indeed, this is someone Gon really needs. She's always known, right? But now there's no jealousy. Now there's just like this acceptance. She's mature about it, right? And she sees that, Killua needs to understand this and know this because, he's never actually dabbled in that thought process. How much he might mean to Gon, it's always the opposite, isn't it? How much Gon means to Killua. To the point that, he almost kind of puts this label on Gon, right? Or the Gon that he has in his mind. And, the moment Gon kind of, deviates from that, this idea of Gon being his light, Killua just, you see that he feels incredibly helpless, right? And it all came out. No matter how strongly he guarded those emotions or locked them away, rather, it all came out, right? Like Palm said, it's better to let it all out. She didn't mean it in that context, but, it applies nevertheless. And yeah, you see in the expressions on Killua's face that, this coming from Palm, it means so much more than anyone else. Don't think you can't do anything. I mean, for starters, you just kind of helped me break through, right? And, you still have a job to do here. Gon is still out there and he needs you. Now, listen, how much of their help is Gon open to accepting at this point remains to be seen. He's really, really quite locked in, dialed in, right? Tunnel vision. I've said it, time and time again, but it really is. Right now, the only thing Gon really truly cares about is Pito, right? And Kite. Those are the two things, and everything else is just kind of background noise at the moment, at least, right? But going back to my point about both Killua and Palm now becoming, a support system for Gon rather than, these rivals for his affection, it does kind of remind me of the dynamic between the Royal Guards and the King Meruem. Because the Royal Guards, they have concern for the king. They have loyalty towards their king, right? They have this duty, they're duty bound to help the king to the best of their abilities, even if the king does not want that help, right? I think it's actually really quite similar to Gon and his circle, first circle of characters that are attached to him. And that includes characters such as Killua and Palm. But, kind of staying on that topic of first circle characters, you can even kind of bring together Killua and FILMBuFF, right? And their relationships with Gon and Meruem, right? In a sense, there is neglect. There's feelings of neglect, or feeling neglected, rather. I think there's a semblance of that in Killua as well, within Killua. I mean, there's certainly a sense of that in FILMBuFF, right? Both of them have seen the changes in, Gon and Meruem, but both Killua and FILMBuFF found themselves unable to address it, right? Or face it even, right? I mean, Poof is certainly at one point just actively kind of ignoring it, right? Because it's like that elephant in the room situation that he's trying to just, look away from, right? It happens on multiple occasions, even after the Dragon Dive episode. Now, of course, given the nature of the dynamic between the king and the royal guards, it's much tougher for someone like FILMBuFF to actually, address that, right? To face that or to express his concerns. Because again, the connotations of expressing something like that to your king, the connotations are a bit different, aren't they? But, again, it's really quite similar to how Killua has kind of handled this, right? Just kind of keep it locked up inside. Poof has done that too. But, again, Tagashi's given us enough of Poof to see that, okay, of course, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it one bit, right? But he continues to go with the flow as long as he can, right? I mean, hell, you see, by the end of it, he's already kind of thinking of a different future, right? A future that certainly includes his king, but not his siblings, right? Because he's beginning to see that, okay, some of these ideas, some of these experiments, rather, they are kind of failing, right? And he's beginning to realize, okay, if push comes to shove and it does get to that point, do I really need any of them? Because in his mind, that ideal king still exists, right? He believes that still exists within his king, Meruem. But, let's kind of stay on the topic of FILMBuFF and even, kind of bring in Neferpito as well, because I do get that flashback, right? And then, there's some interesting moments in that. Now, I'm a little bit confused about this. At one point, the narrator is actually going on about how the experiments that produced Chitu and Liol confirmed that, the ones who, retained more of their memories emerged from the cocoons sooner. And of course, they do end up taking the same approach with Palm, right? But now my understanding is that must have been them getting their new abilities through Poof, right? Poof handing out these new Nen abilities to them, right? Surely, because like I said, both of those characters existed before FILMBuFF showed up on the scene, before he's born. I'm pretty certain. Yeah, I'm pretty certain, yeah? Palm's flashback. I finally get the thing I've been asking for such a long time at this point. The missing piece of the puzzle. I mean, it's been clear for some time now that, something happened to her. She got caught, right? But, it just didn't show me anything for a long time. The anime itself. So, yeah, I finally got it. Indeed, she does get captured because, again, that's really the only thing that could have happened, right? But, something interesting happened here, right? And I think it's actually pretty damn cool in a sense, that Shalapouf and Neferpito actually found Palm's aura really quite interesting, to the point that they actually wanted to experiment on her to keep her around. They saw something in her. So I don't know, I think that's kind of cool that they found her or her aura to be unique enough, interesting enough to take it a step further, right? Made her experiment soldier number 1. Now, of course, ultimately, that experiment fails, as Shalapouf tells Montezuma, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that Neferpito does heal her before any of this, right? Because you see, the leftover blood on the top. And also, speaking of the look, the 2 different looks I got for Palm, though it's hinted at, it's shown in the closing stages of the last episode as well. You see that the self-harm scars are now covered up as well. Again, this kind of plays into that whole idea of rebirth as well. Second chances, a new chance. And also, before I forget, kind of going back to that flashback, seeing that look on Neferpito's face, that feels like such a distant memory at this point, given how I've seen Neferpito quite recently, right? At the moment, it just feels so far-fetched, her having that kind of look on her face, again, given the situation she finds herself in, her Komugi and Gon. So yeah, I thought that was a fun little callback to Neferpito from not a lifetime ago, but one that I don't think I'll be seeing again. Now let's kind of go back to something Killua said to Palm, and I think this is actually bit of a significant moment. Now, it's more so of a confirmation rather than, a shocking moment. But Killua knows, he understands that Kite is gone. He's gone for good, right? And this is as he's kind of, trying to switch up the tactics. And he explains to Palm that, someone that Gon deeply respects was completely transformed, right? That person had his soul taken away. So he knows, right? At the most, basic level, Killua understands that Kite is gone. And he understands that Gon is kind of locked into this whole thing. And ultimately, it's going to be a bit of a rough ending, right? So Killua knows that, and he has that in his mind as well at all times. The effect all of that is going to have on Gon once he finally, understands that. And sooner or later, Gon is going to have to understand that, because at some point, that's the only conclusion that's going to be left for him. Now, as you know, I've always believed that Killua knew this right from the beginning, essentially, right? He understood this, and I still maintain that. Even if some people said, they actually did think that Killua believes it himself as well at this point. Gon kind of convinced him and all that. But no, I've always believed that Killua's always understood that, Kite's gone. But yeah, I think by the end of the episode, I felt that I got to watch a great example of a maiden arc play out, as Palm has successfully individuated, right, and into her own autonomy now, right, growing into the potential, accepting that potential and responsibility, and yeah, ultimately personal sovereignty. And like I said a little bit earlier, I just felt so proud. It's a good moment. It's a really good feeling to see this happen for Palm, right? I was hoping for this. I was asking for this. And like I said, I'm really quite excited to see the role she's about to play in the rest of this arc, right? In the closing stages of this arc. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length, consider checking out the Patreon page. The links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media, if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is, and I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.